You're listening to World of Empowerment Radio, your station for practical spirituality in a changing world. And here are your hosts, Aingeal Rose and Ahonu.
Hi, I am Ahonu, and on behalf of Aingeal Rose, I want to welcome you to this interview today on World of Empowerment Radio with Shirley Ward. I met Shirley Ward 30 years ago in Ireland. In fact, she was one of the early pioneers of health and using spirituality as a means to grow in awareness and in consciousness through her work as a pre- and perinatal psychotherapist. And it benefited me hugely at the time because I was coming out of the death of my first son, and it was an enormous help to me. And I didn't realize the vast experience that she had in this whole field, because she's in her 80s now and she has been working for all of her life helping people through birth trauma. At this stage, it's interesting how everything revolves around our connections and our contacts and our own soul journeys. And we met again when I brought Aingeal Rose to Ireland in 2012, and we visited Shirley in her new home in County Clare in Ireland. And we had a very interesting discussion at that point in time. In fact, we turned it into a video that we have on YouTube, and I'll put the link to it down below, because we were talking about the Mayan calendar and her work and how it was very timely that her work should become known to the world at that point in time. And we spoke also during that interview in 2012 about, we spoke with her colleague, her longtime colleague, Alison Hunter, and her partner, Carmel. And it was interesting how out of that work that they have done, the three of them, through their business called Amethyst Resource for Human Development, she created these 3 books that we have published. And the first book that she wrote back then, I think first published in 2014, was called Fractals from the Womb. And Fractals from the Womb is a journey through pre- and perinatal psychotherapy. And it's an intriguing insight into our early beginnings and their influences on our character and personality and our relationships with our family, our work, and the wider implications of that worldwide. And her second book then followed on from that. In fact, it was in lots of ways, it was like a rewrite, but an updated version called Healing Birth, Healing Earth. And that was also a journey through her years of pre- and perinatal psychotherapy and psychology. And it's an extraordinary and much needed study of a sadly neglected area of therapy. And she set out clearly her discoveries around birth trauma, and her work is richly embedded with case studies from her long career. Her final book in the series, well, I won't say final because she's 81 and she still has more books in her, and we'll hear about that in the interview. But the third book in that series so far is Birth, Earth, Our Future, because what she does is she outlines how the resolution of birth trauma and our conception and birth defines who we are and how we relate to each other, the earth and our future. And she recognizes the profound shift that's occurring and encourages everybody to work towards how we heal our birth trauma, subsequently helps heal the earth. It's an intriguing insight, and it comes from her understanding of how we are all a fractal of the conception, gestation, and birth of ourselves and the universe. And our journey from conception to birth defines who we are and how we relate to each other. So have a listen to this interview, and if you do want to contact Shirley, she gives out her contact details at the end. So let's go ahead now and bring on Aingeal Rose and Shirley Ward. You're very welcome, Shirley. It's good to see you again.
Hello.
The last time we met was in County Clare when Alison was alive, 2012.
Yes, but we met later, didn't we? In Bunratty.
We did.
Oh, we did too.
We did. Yes,
Yeah.
we did.
Oh, that's right. That one escaped me. Yes, yes, yes. Well, now, so tell us how things are going in the aftermath of Alison's death. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to circle this around so as to talk about birth trauma and your work with the pre and perinatal psychotherapy.
Mm-hmm. What, since Alison died?
Yes.
Well, it's been difficult and we miss her terribly.
Mm.
But we've had COVID, you see, in between, because
Right.
she died on the 8th of November 2019, which was just before the COVID lockdown.
Right.
And so we've had a pretty difficult time because we were evicted, of course, from the house that was the centre. And
Yes.
so we've had the whole move. And because of COVID, we couldn't have anyone to help us. And so I don't know where this comes from a birth script, but it's certainly, I had no one to help me. And at the age of 80, I
Wow.
moved, and Carmel at her age too,
Yeah.
we had a 10-room centre to move. We couldn't sell anything because nobody wanted anything because of COVID, and nobody would come because of COVID.
Yeah.
And so this is how it's been. And so
Yeah.
it's been quite a difficult time. And we both have, I got an apartment and Carmel has got a house. She's in Killaloe, but we're about 15 miles apart.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
also difficult.
But all
And,
those difficulties, Shirley, they didn't stop you from writing, and you've continued to write two super books, one being Healing Birth, Healing Earth, and the other Birth, Earth, Our Future, along with
Yes.
the republishing of Fractals from the Womb. So it hasn't stopped you being productive.
Well, no, but you see, the wonderful thing is, I worked so hard during my lifetime. Then I wrote the other book 8 years ago, Fractals, because I knew I needed to document our work.
Right.
But when COVID started and we had the lockdown, oh wow, the time was a real gift. It's the first time in my life I've had the luxury of actually sitting down and documenting and collating stuff and writing. And the first time I've had the silence and the time to meditate and the time to be,
Yes.
to get this stuff on paper.
Now, that's interesting because Aingeal Rose has pointed out many times too how COVID was actually of great benefit to some people and to animals and the environment, because everything just went quiet and settled down and no traffic and no pollution. Do you know?
You read my poem on human lockdown from the viewpoint of the animals.
Yeah.
I did send
I don't think the alligators in Florida minded having the beaches all to themselves.
Yeah. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. So I was able to tune in as well with the animal world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my cat. I've lost 2 cats in 3 months, which is quite extraordinary. I had Simi, who was Alison's cat, and he was nearly 20, and
Right.
he died of old age.
Yeah.
But then last week I had to have Tommy put down, and he was the eldest of my triplets, because I've got triplets and I've got 2 left here. I've never only had 2 cats because animals have always been a great part of my life.
Right. Yes.
But this integration of animals and people, I knew my kittens when they were conceived.
Mm-hmm.
I'd linked in even with the animal world, and I knew my kittens before they were born.
Yeah.
And Tommy, he was a spontaneous, happy cat. He didn't care a thing about doing anything wrong. If he got into trouble, he didn't care.
Yeah.
And I said, boy, you've taught me a lot, because I'm not going to care anymore about what people think about what I'm doing.
Right.
And if I'm way out and the things that I'm saying and doing, you look at me as if I've got 2 heads, and they do.
Right.
A number of people,
No, I've seen that in the past because of the work that you're doing. It is pioneering. There's no doubt about it. There are other people around the world that are starting to understand it and start to investigate it a little bit more. But you're the one who I have known all these years who have tackled it head on. So can you tell us where whereabouts it is now. Like,
She should describe it first.
describe
Can
what
you
you mean.
describe your work to our audience, Shirley? Because there'll be a lot of people who don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I believe we don't know enough. We know more about the underwater, under the oceans. We know more about the moon, and of course they're off to the moon again.
Yes.
And that's fine, because we're going to need the moon if we don't
Yeah.
if we don't deal and heal the planet.
Yeah.
Then we're going to need to live on the moon. And people say, yeah, daft, but it's not, because one of the things I'm looking at the moment is, to conceive, gestate, birth, and bring up a child for the third millennium. We need the knowledge of womb experience. Those people in the world who are looking from preconception and conception and birth, and how this relates to how we relate to ourselves, to people, and the planet. It's all there. And so, parents to be, and this is what I'm really looking at, parents to be, for the child to be physically, mentally, intellectually, psychologically, and spiritually healthy. Then parents need to have access to the knowledge of the good things that happen from conception to birth, and how they can foster this.
Yeah.
And possibly, a lot of this work could be negative, and it's not. I try not to write it negatively.
Mm-hmm.
But, the negative things that happen to us in the womb are the things we destroy the planet and nature with.
Right.
Like selfishness and money and wanting this and wanting that. And it doesn't matter what we do to the planet. And so many people are still doing that. And so that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to see what sort of new humanity do we need to produce, to save the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just come across Jean Houston again, of course, and she would be there. She's always in the forefront. The Quest of Rose, and she's looking at the future of humans, and she's got a trilogy out, which I didn't know about. So I'm having a look to see what her ideas are. And there's other people who have written. I've got, I think there's Thomas Verney has just written another one called The Embodied Mind.
Yeah.
And it's like the consciousness on the planet by the people who were pioneering this stuff are really looking at what sort of humanity are we moving into? What are we evolving into?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
And,
Well,
I think it's really where I am.
Right. Can I ask you a question? And it's to do with our parents and obviously their parents, and going back through our own ancestry. Do you find yourself, Shirley, being somewhat forgiving of our parents because they just didn't know any better? Do you feel that?
Of course. Yeah, I believe that there's usually one person, if not two, in a family who are helping to heal their own ancestors.
Right.
And healing the future, so that we move into the future. I've always believed this, and I know my own strengths in a way of our family were very fragmented. My father was the eldest of 10.
Yeah.
He was born in 1915, and his mother lived through the First World War.
Yeah.
And my mother was the youngest of 6, and her mother lived through the First World War with 6 children. With the husband, my grandfather was in the Dardanelles for 4 years. So my mother never knew her father till he came back.
Yeah.
And so, this is painful stuff.
Yes.
My grandmother was very, very strong. I don't know how she did it. I don't know how she brought 6 children up. And I don't know how the other grandmother did. I didn't know her very well. But, there was a lot of conflict in the families, and I hope that I've been helping. I was the eldest granddaughter, and I've got an uncle. I mean, I'm 81, the eldest granddaughter, and I've got an uncle who's only 3 years older than me. But we talk, and hopefully there's healing in the family.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
And let me ask you, in terms of, we can understand how the parents who came through 2 world wars, we can understand the difficulties that they came through. But what about parents, young parents today, like who are bringing children into the world now, who haven't experienced the kind of trauma of World War? What difficulties are they encountering that would lead to birth trauma? You know, what do they need to tackle, or what are the issues that they're dealing with?
I mean, I immediately go to drugs and alcohol on the negative side.
Right. Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of good stuff happening with young people today.
Okay.
We can't just dismiss the good stuff that's happening. There's
Right.
a lot of young people out there who love their babies. There's a lot of single mothers. There's more single mothers. And, in a sense, some of the fathers don't want to know. Okay. But I don't know. I'm wondering whether this is a gender issue.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really looked at it because over the last 2 years, and I've been on my own and trying to work. But I'm wondering whether it's a gender issue. Men have the power, and yet we've had this very strong feminine, the feminine movement.
Yes.
And the the gay and lesbian and transvestite, they're coming into their own. And there's families now with there's 2 women with a baby and the 2 men with a baby. This is they're not problems, but they're different.
Right.
It's a different life, it's a different lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many people accept this. How much forgiveness there is, how much acceptance there is.
Yeah.
And I think some of these young folk are very aware of it. They're even bringing it out in Emmerdale on, in the soap operas.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Because they're public issues that they're grasping to try and deal with. Yeah. Yeah. So these problems, they've never been encountered before, obviously. So do you think we'll ever arrive at a place where birth trauma will not be a problem anymore?
No, I don't think so. It can be better. It can be, what's the word? No, not for everyone.
Right.
No, I don't think so. But I think that there's a certain percentage of people in the world, and it was happening. There are certain strong people. I mean, yeah, I'm pretty strong, and I think, why am I strong like this? I had a lot of problems. I was born during the war. I was born in 1941, but Britain, and I was born in England. In those days, towards the end of the war, and I put it in my first book for my parents, they were so happy at the end of the war. They were so positive. Things were going to be better. Everything was going to be better. It would never be like this. Well, it has been, unfortunately, but they gave me this positive, I don't know what you call it, personality, if you want. Right. I never stop. I'm determined. I'm determined to get this out. I am not dying yet. I haven't got time. I
haven't got time to die.
I'm in this. I'm being looked after. And the house that I'm paying, this apartment that I'm paying rent for, has got a lease on for 25 years. I said, fantastic. I can live to be 105.
Excellent. Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I can't tell you how much I want to get this message out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, when we're messing around with people not buying books and I don't know, or not understanding it, and somebody's reading it at the moment, said, Shirley, I'm having to read every page twice. I said, great. Good. You're obviously one of twins.
So Shirley, I have a question for people our age. Okay, what are some of the patterns that you see in people our age in terms of birth trauma? Because, I mean, I have my own issues with not being a wanted pregnancy. And my daughter had a twin that died in the womb. And I'd like to know
Really?
what are the effects of those sorts of things, like especially the twin.
So you lost a baby, you lost
No,
the-
my daughter,
your daughter.
yeah, she had twins in the womb, and one passed away very early on.
Mm.
Okay, so she just had the one little girl as a preemie. She came out early. You know.
Well, I mean, things like we spend the time looking for that twin. And I always say that people didn't treat Elvis Presley right because he was one of twins.
Oh, was he? Okay.
Yes, his twin died just before birth or just after birth. And he was one of twins. And I see in Elvis, what was he looking for in his life? Such a wonderful voice and the music, but onto drugs and so on. And it's this sort of thing. I think one of the major things is the loss.
Yeah.
The loss of the twin. I mean, this is why I'm worried about my cats. They've been together since they were conceived. And I've got two here who are really mourning Tommy not being here.
Yeah.
And, animals do grieve.
Mhm.
But it's the same sort of thing when there's been a loss. You have to deal with the bereavement.
Mm-hmm.
And often some of the problems of the one, I mean, how old is the child now that lost the twin?
She's 4.
And how is she,
You know, she's the sweetest child until my daughter had another baby. And she's extremely jealous. But, I have a feeling that the little girl she had is the twin that was lost.
Oh, yes.
Because she seems to be, she was so afraid to love her. I saw that
It's like a love-hate relationship.
yeah,
Isn't it?
so she, on one hand, she loves her to pieces. On the other hand, she'd whack her across the head and, want to get rid of her. So it's quite an interesting phenomenon because I never experienced my own kids being jealous like that. But
Well, maybe it's not jealousy. Maybe it's not understanding that she is, she lost a twin, but here she is with another baby. And who is it?
right.
Yeah.
I think the second baby she has is the twin that was lost in the womb. That's my feeling. And I had a feeling from my 4-year-old granddaughter that she's terrified to love her because she's already lost her once, and she doesn't want to lose her again. So that's what I got when I tuned into her. Like, why are you so afraid of this? Like, what's the big deal? Why can't you share? She's better now, but boy, was she a holy terror, wasn't she, Hannah?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
And I tend to see that when we lose babies, there is this theory that it's a little soul who wants to come back and either isn't ready and needs to leave again and then come back again, which to some people would sound absolutely ridiculous. But, we have to look at people's beliefs. We're not all Christians. We're not all Hindus. We're not, we are all different in our spirituality. And many people have gone away from, the religions and come into their own spirituality and on their own spiritual path.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what it's about. We are all on a spiritual, it is a sacred journey.
Yeah.
But, if that little embryo or that little fetus comes back and they're not ready, they're going to leave. And this seems simple for me to say, but it's not. But it's very painful to the parents who it happens to.
Yeah.
And so if your daughter lost that baby, maybe it wasn't ready to come. And by goodness me, if there were going to be 2 of them, I didn't want 2 of them, and want my own feet, and I'll go back and I'll come back later.
Yeah.
And I do think that this goes on.
Yeah. Well,
does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Somehow?
Yeah. You've got 3 books now, Shirley Ward, all more or less to do with how we deal with birth trauma. And if we can heal that birth process, then we can heal the earth. And like that seems to me to be the general theme, that it's bigger than just having babies. It's a big deal.
Oh,
It's
massive.
it's cosmic, yeah.
It's
But
massive. And this is why I brought fractals in, because
yes,
the fractals are the idea or the pattern,
yes,
of what happens in the cosmos. And it
right,
also fits in with as above, so below.
right,
This fits in with the medieval
yeah,
understanding.
yeah. So what I
And
wanted
it's
to ask you,
massive.
and we've only got a few minutes left, so I wanted to try
Have
and
we?
I
Well,
wanted I
we'll
wanted to
meet
get
you.
this. I know time flies. Um, I wanted to
Yeah.
get this answer in because it's crucial to for people who are interested in resolving issues with birth trauma and that for themselves and their whole ancestral tree. And that is that in your books you have various case studies of
Mm,
people who have gone through similar types of things,
mm.
and you spell out those. Excuse me. You spell out those case studies very effectively. And but what I want to know is, are there solutions? Like if somebody was to pick up your book, would they find a solution to their own issues? Like if they were a twin who lost a twin or whatever the circumstances might be. In other words, are there solutions there, or as at this stage, is it all conjecture or possibility?
I think the first solution is bringing it into consciousness.
Yes, super. Yeah,
It's as simple as that.
yeah,
Bringing it into consciousness, whatever the problem is.
yeah.
And a lot of people have problems and they don't know what it is.
Right.
If you pinpoint and focus what the problem is,
Yes.
and then perhaps with my books, there is a historical place where this happened.
Right. Right.
You
Yeah.
know, it's what's
Yeah.
historical and physical and emotional. They're the three things
Yes.
that's the solution.
Right.
Oh, this is what happened. Well, where did it happen? Because I don't know where it
Yeah.
happened from.
And
But if
that
you
could be
take,
the beginning of forgiveness then of self
yeah,
and others. Yes, and the
yes,
healing of it. Yeah, it's
yes,
almost like the Alcoholics Anonymous idea of admitting that yes, I've got a problem. I'm an alcoholic. And that's really the first step. Well, I'm not sure what the steps are because I have an 8-step program, but it's one of the crucial steps is to, as you say, bring it into consciousness and bring it into awareness.
but you see, so many people when I start talking say, Shirley, we've never heard of this.
Yeah,
Why haven't we heard about it? And I say, well, there's not enough people doing it. You know,
yeah,
it's not the sort people have got lives and they've got so much to do. They're not going to worry about what happened to them in the womb.
yeah, yeah,
That's gone, but it hasn't. It's lived with them. It's there.
yeah, yeah.
How did you discover that, though, Shirley, yourself?
Sorry?
How did you discover that this is where things go back to? Like, how did you begin your work? Because like you just said, not a lot of people know about this. So how did you personally happen upon it?
I had problems. I'd been in religious life and I thought, and then I left and I thought, yeah, even God has rejected me. And so many of us, if we're not planned pregnancies, we feel rejected. And I met Alison and Frank Lake. And that's where it started. I was in terrible trouble. I couldn't walk. I had been told 50 years ago that I would end up in a wheelchair. And what I found when I went to one of the workshops at Lingdale in Frank Lake's clinical theology, and it was Alison who was taking it, I found that the leg problem, I've had 3 operations on this knee, and I was 12 when I had the first one, when I had a cartilage removed. And what I found eventually was that it happened in the womb. My mother was so small and I was cramped up. I really cramped up and my knee, I couldn't move. And so the damage came out in the knee.
Mm.
And I worked a lot on stuff in the womb and really freed this leg up. I had a knee replacement when I was 57. I'm now 81.
Wow.
I'm doing fine and nobody's going to touch this leg again.
Yeah.
So that's where it was. I worked on myself through Frank Lake, and then I became friendly with Frank from the point of view he shared everything with me. It's in my books. He'd come with his ball books and a board with all his patterns and all his charts and said, what do you think to this? Do you believe in this? Have you experienced this? And it went on and on. And he was training me. And then, of course, I had Alison. And when the two of us worked together, by God, we were dynamic.
You were indeed.
And I miss her terribly.
Yeah,
and
I have first-hand experience of that.
You know, don't despair, keep going.
Yeah.
And then the Queen said, keep calm and carry on.
Think of England.
Keep calm, carry on. The Queen of England said, and I caught it, keep calm and carry on. And I thought, Liz, that's a blinking good burst script.
Yes.
Keep calm and carry on. And if that's what the Queen Mother did when she carried the Queen and when the Queen had her 4 children, that's good enough for me.
Yes, good. Well, that's a wonderful note on which to leave this. There is so much more that we could talk about and so many more directions we could go on, but we're limited by time. And I want to ensure that our listeners and viewers are going to be able to get in touch with you, Shirley. Now, we will put a link all over the place for your books, The Fractals from the Womb, Healing Birth, Healing Earth, and Birth, Earth, Our Future. But if somebody wanted to connect with you, you have a website, right?
I have a website, and my email is shirley@shirleyward.org.
Right, yeah.
My website is shirleyward.org.
Super.
And so they can contact me through that.
Yeah, excellent.
Easy.
Okay, well, look, it's a joy as always.
To be continued.
Yes.
Hopefully.
As always.
Thank you both very much. And enjoy Sedona. It's a wonderful, wonderful place. Don't leave it too quickly, will you?
Don't leave it too quickly. When this is over, okay?
Yeah.
Don't leave Sedona too quickly.
Thank you so much. We will connect with you again soon.
Thank you so much. That was lovely.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. God bless you both.
We hope you enjoyed that. We love speaking with Shirley Ward. There's no doubt she is a pioneer in what she does. Unfortunately, we were constrained by time. Otherwise, we could have gone in many different directions with that interview. But we hope what we did discuss was helpful to you. And if you want to get in touch with Shirley, simply connect with her through her website at shirleyward.org. Until next time, blessings from myself, Ahonu, and from Aingeal Rose.
You have been listening to Aingeal Rose and Ahonu on World of Empowerment Radio, your station for practical spirituality in a changing world.